Hey guys, what's up? Today I'm going to be convincing you that the Star Wars sequels are better than the prequels. This video is mostly just going to be me talking about the problems with the prequels and not really talking about any of the strengths of the sequels, because I don't think they're good. I just think they're slightly better than the garbage, the absolute dumpster fire that are the Star Wars prequels. People used to hate these movies, like they should have, but now they like them because the Star Wars sequels ruined their childhood. But I wasn't alive when the original trilogy came out, so I like them, I love them actually, but I don't have like this sacredness of them in my mind, you know? So I'm here to just look at things from an objective perspective, and it's clear to anybody without any predispositions that, the Star Wars sequels are superior as far as movies go. So let's get into it. Point number one that I have to make here, the Phantom Menace is a really bad movie, okay? So I'm sort of just gonna go through all the prequels and talk about why I don't like them. So the Phantom Menace is a movie that doesn't really have any emotion in it, and none of the characters are really driven by any emotion. It's sort of just like George Lucas didn't know how to make the prequels, and he just decided on the events that he wanted to happen, and then he just had the characters do the events. But he didn't actually assign motivation for the characters, you know, so they don't really have anything that's driving them or making them want to advance the plot. And I think just the biggest problem with this whole prequel trilogy as a whole is that George Lucas is a pretty terrible director. You might point out, oh, the original Star Wars trilogy is really good, and he only directed the first one, okay? He didn't direct Empire or Return of the Jedi. And for the first one, he had a lot of input from like other people. You know, there's the infamous clip of Mark Hamill making fun of him on some late night show because his lines were so bad, like they are in the prequels, right? And Mark Hamill was like, no, we're not saying that. And so him and the cast members and some other people on set decided to change the lines to make them better, right? So George Lucas, he had the vision, but he needed other people to sort of tame the beast of his creativity, you know, and that's how you got the amazing movies in the original trilogy. But here, he was so respected because he made the original trilogy that they just let him do whatever he wanted, you know, and it completely ruined, especially the Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, but even Revenge of the Sith a little bit, you know, and you sort of just have all the worst possible things that George Lucas did in the original trilogy amplified. The terrible dialogue, the lack of motivation, bad characters, and a lot of other things I can't think of right now. So I think that's the broad reason why the prequels are bad, okay? And I think anybody who sees that and agrees with me already can appreciate that and understand it. But there's a lot of you out there who just don't agree that it's true. You know, you still think the sequels are complete garbage and way worse than these movies. So I'm here to correct your wrongly thinking minds. So the Phantom Menace there isn't really anything too egregious in it, you know. People like to complain about Jar Jar Binks, which I think is just completely missing the point. Some people say, yeah, I know, Phantom Menace sucked, huh? Jar Jar Binks. It's like, no. The Phantom Menace was not bad because of Jar Jar Binks. The Phantom Menace was bad because the characters had no motivation. The only emotional scene was when Qui-Gon Jinn died and kind of when Anakin had to leave his mom. But besides that, nothing gut-wrenching, no tension building ever. Even in the final battle, you literally are just half asleep because it's so boring and there's nothing keeping you even remotely close to the edge of your seat. You know, I was all the way back in my chair the entire time I watch this. One bad character isn't what makes a movie terrible, okay? It is bad writing, horrible dialogue, bad motivations, and just an overall misunderstanding of how you tell a prequel story, right? You do have to set the story blocks in place, but then you have to assign motivations to characters that create those events and make them happen, right? You can't just have the characters do random things because you want them to get to the next point in the story. And he tries to fix this a little in Attack of the Clones, but it didn't work. So now let's move on to movie number 2. Attack of the Clones is pretty much universally agreed upon to be the weakest Star Wars movie. I mean, I like it more than The Phantom Menace just because it's funnier, more stuff happens, even though there's terrible lines and even worse dialogue than there was in The Phantom Menace. At least you get some emotion. You get a love story, a terribly done love story, but a love story nevertheless.
If you're suffering as much as I am, please tell me.
You know, we still get to feel some humanness, which is what we liked in the original trilogy in the first place. So that's something that I enjoy and I count as a plus for Attack of the Clones. But as a film itself, and as a story, it falls apart, like on every single level. I hope I don't have to explain why this movie is bad. Everybody knows that. But I think this movie also deals with the problem that they sort of have to establish Anakin's character and make him interesting, right? Because in The Phantom Menace, I'd argue that Obi-Wan, or maybe even Qui-Gon Jinn, was the main character, right? Anakin wasn't really the main character in that story. A big problem with that movie was that there was no main character. So here they had to reintroduce his character, right, and pretty much reestablish him entirely. And they also had to deal with the fact that there was a time jump. So they had to sort of do character development for a character that we didn't even know that well. So they sort of had to do that, and they never did it right. So we never end up caring about Anakin that much throughout this entire trilogy, which I think is a big problem. These movies also have no subtlety, right? A little while back I made a video where I ranked all the Star Wars movies, and I pointed out that the Revenge of the Sith movie was the only one where we truly see Anakin battling with the dark and the light. And a bunch of people in the comments pointed out that, oh, in this movie he murders a bunch of Tusken Raiders and women and children, so that's sort of him going back and forth. And it's like, yeah, but not really, because him just doing one evil thing isn't really an internal battle. He's pretty much a good guy except for that one scene in this movie. There's no subtlety, there's no subtle character emotions or conversations or any tension that's shown here to portray to us that, okay, he's really trying to not be pulled to the dark side, but he is having this battle inside of him. But that's not really what we see. You know, we just get him being a good guy, and then one scene where he does something bad, and then really no consequences come from that. It doesn't impact his character going forward at all, and it's just another example of how George Lucas is not good at directing characters. Revenge of the Sith is probably the best one. I really like this movie. I put this one in 4th place, okay? The first two movies are really bad. This one has bad elements, right? It still suffers from a lot of the things that the previous two did, but it's a lot better. They really hone in on Anakin's battle with the darkness. There's actually some subtlety in this movie. It's fun to watch. The Order 66 sequence is awesome. Okay, so this movie is pretty good. There are some problems that I'll bring up in a little bit, but for the most part, I like this movie, but it just suffers from the things that it had to deal with from the previous two. So, would you rather watch a trilogy of movies with very stiff, terrible acting, horribly written dialogue, or sure, maybe some bad characterization, but fun, quippy Marvel type characters that at least somewhat make the story that's being told more interesting? Would you rather have to watch terribly shot movies with some of the most ugly CGI that I've ever seen, or a trilogy of movies with pretty great cinematography, even if the story isn't all that great? I understand that people sort of have this nostalgia for the prequels, and I do too. But when you're looking at it from an objective standpoint and you take away everything that you sort of have from your childhood of loving these movies, you sort of start to see that yes, the original trilogies have always been good, will always be the best, and the Star Wars sequels and prequels are both pretty bad. But if you had to pick between one of the two trilogies as far as just the quality of the movie, you have to go with the sequels, okay? From an objective standpoint. I'd watch Revenge of the Sith over any of the sequels any day, right? Just for nostalgic reasons. But as far as, you know, a good movie goes, the sequels are better. Thanks for watching. I know I'm gonna get a lot of nasty comments down below, so please leave them. They will help out the video a lot. Thank you. Bye.